Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Rex, and this is my review of Ebirah, Horror of the Deep. So on this channel, I've been reviewing all the Godzilla movies. I'm reviewing them in order of release. So if you want to check out any of the other Godzilla films, they're on my channel, and I hope you enjoy it. So let's just go ahead and jump right in, because I actually had a lot of questions. I wanted to do a little bit of research on this film before I watched it and after I watched it, because I had some questions about this movie. For instance, I wanted to know about the budget. I wanted to know about the director. I wanted to know about like the music in this movie, because it's so different. So I think the way I want to structure this is I kind of want to go through like some history on this project, on this film, because I think it's really interesting. I'll talk a little bit about like what I remember from my childhood, and then I'll actually go through the film. So some of the questions that I had that I wanted to know the answer to, that was when I was looking for a little bit of history on this film. First thing was the budget. This had a much lower budget than previous films. For instance, King Kong Godzilla in 1962 had a budget of 150 million yen. Then Mothra Godzilla, 143 million. Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, 133 million. Invasion of Astro Monster, 132 million. And Ebirah, Horror of the Deep, 120 million. So a drop of, 12 million yen on that. 20% lower than King Kong versus Godzilla. So at this point in the franchise, you're getting, yearly, if not more than yearly, Godzilla films. And the budgets are going down on them. So I think that's also leading to lower ticket sales, as the films are still doing good. I think attendance on this film was like 3 point something million, but it's dropping with every movie, and we might get into that in a minute. But it says that this was a cheaper film by 1962 to 1965 standards. Toho deliberately designed it around the economy. Part of it is also that this film was originally supposed to be a King Kong movie, which I didn't know. This is the first time I've heard this. But this was originally supposed to be a King Kong film, which is why Ishiro Honda is not the director. I originally was wondering if we had a different director, because Ishiro Honda was upset about like the like more kid-friendly direction that Godzilla was going in as a franchise, but apparently it was a scheduling conflict mixed with the fact that this was originally supposed to be a King Kong film that had already been assigned to another director, which was Jun Fukuda. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. I'm actually not sure how to pronounce anything in Japanese, and I butcher all of the words, and I'm sorry. But yeah, so this is his film. There's no like evidence that like Honda refused it or was taken off of a project or anything like that. So that's good. What else? Hold on one second. So budget was lower. So they kept it all on a tropical island. Most of the film takes place on a tropical island. They reuse suits, miniatures, and effects assets. So they cut a lot of corners here for this film, and we'll get into audience reception on that in a minute as well. But the movie was originally developed as a King Kong project. The original story involved a tropical island, a giant sea monster, young adventurers. When the King Kong deal fell apart, Toho replaced Kong with Godzilla, and that explains why Godzilla feels somewhat disconnected from the rest of the plot. And the movie feels more like an adventure film than a traditional Godzilla film. I'm really glad to know this, because the entire tone of this movie is way different than previous Godzilla films, especially even like the more recent ones. So this made a lot of sense to me, and I had never heard this before. Kumi Mizuno returns. She was Miss Namikawa, who was like my favorite character in the previous Godzilla film, Invasion of Astro Monster. She's back to play a character named Dio in this movie, and we'll get into her character and stuff later, but right now she's probably like my favorite recurring Godzilla character. Obviously, number one would probably be Dr. Serizawa, who also shows up in this film as a bad guy, actually, which it was kind of cool to see him playing a bad guy. There's actually a lot of actors in this film that are like, by this point, like heavily associated with Godzilla, at least to me. Like I see them, I'm like, I might not know their names, but I'm like, oh, that's a Godzilla actor. That's a Godzilla actor. Yep, Godzilla. So a lot of recurring actors here in this film. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I was most excited for Miss Namikawa. So she comes back. She's considered one of Toho's most beloved actresses, and frequently cited as one of the strongest human performers in the Showa era. She does a fantastic job in this movie. The Godzilla suit was not completely new for this either, which makes sense with them. I'm sorry, I've been sick for like 2 or 3 weeks. But anyway, with them cutting corners on the budget, they reused a modified version of the Invasion of Astro Monster Godzilla suit. This fans call this version of the Godzilla suit Nankai Goji, I think is how you pronounce it. Modifications include improved arm mobility, replacement head during production. Some underwater sequences may have utilized parts from older suit components. The soundtrack is very different. So they did not have Akira Ifukube. I'm sorry. They did not have the traditional music composer here. Instead, we got Masaru Sato here, or Sato. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I'm sorry. But the soundtrack includes go-go music, electric guitar rock, spy film music, jazz influences, and tropical adventure music. And this immediately stood out to me. The music throughout this film is like very fun. It's vibrant. It has a lot of energy. It's very different than previous music from previous Godzilla films. I find it honestly kind of fitting. Obviously I think that if this would have maintained its heading as a King Kong project, it probably would have fit that even more. But I think for the most part, it does still work here, but it is very different. And some of that is because the director, Jun, wanted a different tone from Honda's films. And they also said that the youth-oriented adventure story encouraged contemporary 1960s pop influences. So that's some of the differences on the music. As far as Japanese box office reception, so ticket sales. This was something that I kind of wanted to show you guys here. Let me pull this up. So you'll see here the ticket sales. King Kong versus Godzilla had 11.2 million. Then Mothra versus Godzilla, 7.29 million. Ghidorah, 5.2 million. Astro Monster, 3.8. And then Ebirah, 3.45 million ticket sales. So this was definitely, like, it was going down. Like, hold on, sorry. I stream on YouTube as well. I'm streaming Final Fantasy on a completely different channel. It's called Rex Sterling Live if you ever want to check it out. I mostly stream video games on YouTube, but I started this channel as a side project, so you'll see me kind of mix up some of my other OBS stuff here. But anyway, it was still a financial success even with dwindling ticket sales, and it still drew millions of viewers, but it did continue a downward trend in terms of viewership. I asked about audience reception, and apparently, mostly audiences enjoyed it. It did contribute to like a growing split in the Godzilla audience, which I still think you see today. You have fans that, want it to be taken more seriously. They appreciate like the darker, heavier tone and darker, heavier themes of like, the original Godzilla, and people still want that incorporated into the film. Other people really liked this. It's Godzilla is more humanized in this film. It's a lot of action and adventure with the human characters. It's a lot more fun. It's kid friendly. It's family friendly. And this one definitely leans a lot heavier in that direction. But I still think, it was a pretty good film. I'll get into like my overall thoughts on it. I do have mixed feelings about it, but I can see both sides of it. People did appreciate the pace of it being faster, the human storyline, the family-friendly tone, but a lot of people didn't like the fact that Godzilla wasn't very central to this movie. Monster action was very limited, which, that always goes hand in hand with either a limited schedule to shoot or a lower budget. Critical reception, it was generally viewed as like mid-tier for the Showa era. And I think, let's see, Historical importance, let me see. It marks the beginning of the Jun Fukuda era of Godzilla films, represents a major tonal shift away from Honda's style, moves the series towards lighter adventure stories, serves as a bridge between the more serious early Showa films and the increasingly family-oriented late 1960s and early 70s entries. So that is just like some of the stuff that I wanted to talk about and cover before I really jump into like the plot of the movie and what I thought about it. Is I kind of wanted to get some context on this one because especially with the music being so different, the tone being so different, I can even remember from my childhood this one having a different tone. And, Honda not returning, I had a lot of questions about this one. So the first thing I'll tell you is that I do remember this movie from my childhood, and I remember it being, even as a kid, probably, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, like in that age range. And I owned this film. I think I had Godzilla versus the Sea Monster, right? So I had the American version. This was my first time. I saw the Japanese version with English subtitles as part of the Criterion collection. So this was my first time seeing this version of the film. And I could tell because there was so much of this I had no memory of. And we'll get into that in a minute, but a lot of this footage was new to me. I never, this was probably on par with me, like, for me as a child. Like, this was probably on par with Mothra versus Godzilla, which that might be heresy to some people. But, as a kid, I just remember I had a hard time buying into Mothra as a giant monster that, I could really get behind, either for good or for evil. Not something to be afraid of, but not really a monster that I felt like I could root for because it's just a giant moth. I know that's kind of fucked up. I love Mothra, but I have to just be, I'm just being real with you. I just could not ever really get behind Mothra, and so I struggled to get into Mothra versus Godzilla. I kind of had the same feelings with Ebirah. It's a giant lobster, man. Like, it's cool, but it's got its claws, and then it shrieks a lot, and that's pretty much all it can do. So you're very limited with the kind of monster fights that you can have here. I actually think that Ebirah would be a much better fight with King Kong than Godzilla, even though I think they did some fun things in this in the very limited fighting that you get. It's the combat, the monster fighting sequences are so small in this movie, but they still do some fun things in those sequences. But I do think it actually would have been a much better and probably more interesting fight with King Kong, simply because Godzilla's breath is like a cheat code for these fights. And it just seems like incredibly one-sided. It probably would have been more fun and probably been a little bit more 50-50 as a fight with King Kong. That's just my prediction. I could be totally wrong. But I never really got into Ebirah like that. But I did like the setting of this film. The human story and, the plot with the humans in this film on this island, and the storms. There's a lot of, the plot involves a lot of heavy thunderstorms, which if you don't know, I love storms. It's my favorite weather, like thunderstorms, heavy rain. And there's a lot of that in this film, so that just always makes me love a project more anytime it involves thunderstorms or anything like that. So there were things that I liked in this movie, just like with Mothra versus Godzilla. There were things that I really liked in this movie. And, there were things that just didn't hit for me, like, not being able to get behind Ebirah, limited monster action, limited. Godzilla has very limited time on screen. A lot of awkward cuts in this film where we were kind of backtracking in terms of actual cinematography in some in some ways. Now, I'm not an expert with any of this, so this is an extremely casual opinion, but we're kind of going back to something I complained about in earlier Godzilla films, where you're just getting these awkward cuts throughout the film, cutting in the middle of action, cutting in the middle of conversations. And this is the Japanese version. I can only imagine how much worse the American version is with this, but yeah, it wasn't, it has frantic pacing, and it's whiplash. The first like 15 minutes of this film is just like so fast, like so much happens in just like the first 10 or 12 minutes. I couldn't believe it when I looked at my watch. So that's that's what I remember about it from my childhood, is that I remember that I liked it because it was a Godzilla movie, but it definitely wasn't one of my favorites. And I always tended to favor the more serious tone Godzilla films, the heavier films, the darker films. But I enjoyed this one as like a fun, action heavy, break. Because I think like I don't know about other Godzilla fans, but speaking for me, I enjoy so there's like two types of Godzilla films, right? There's like the summer blockbuster, light on themes and lighter, more fun, like Michael Bay, like just monster mash movies. And then you've got your like serious, heavy, dark films like, The Return of Godzilla or the original Godzilla, or, something like -1, right? I much prefer, the heavier, darker, more serious films. Whether Godzilla's like the good guy or the bad guy or whatever, or he's, has any anthropomorphic traits or just purely just mindless destruction, whatever. I just prefer like the darker, heavier, more serious films. But I don't want to watch only that, So I'll watch like two or three of those, and then I want like something like this that's lighter tone. So I still appreciated it, but it was always like a more mid-tier Godzilla film for me. So now I'm going to go through like the plot a little bit and give you my thoughts on the actual film. I take notes for every Godzilla film, as you can see. I took quite a few for this one. So our main characters for this film are Yata, who is a missing brother in this film. Ryota, that is the brother who's looking for his missing brother. There's a thief, Yoshimura, and then Dayo, who is Miss Nakimura. All praise be to her. So anyway, you have a music opening. It's way different. It's, like we've already talked about the different music. That was the first thing that stood out to me, is that this has like, I don't know, like, I don't know how to describe the music. I'm just not cultured in that stuff, but I went over it earlier. The type of music this is kind of jazzy, a little bit of swing, jazz, electric guitar, surfish kind of music. And so like an immediate strong tone difference from what I'm used to in other Godzilla films. And the movie starts basically with Yata is missing, and his brother wants to find him, and is looking for him. So Yata was on a fishing boat, and the fishing boat went missing off the coast of Japan, like out in the sea. Everyone's assumed dead, and his family speaks to like psychics and stuff like that, and they're like, no, we think he's alive, or they speak to a shaman or something, and he's alive. So the brother of Yata, who is again, his name is Ryota, he goes to the police. The police brush him off. He's going to the news. He's trying to talk to anybody that he can to basically get them to search for his brother. They blow him off. They're like, hey, the wreckage has already been found. They're dead, blah, blah, blah. So he basically gets brushed off by everybody. And then, while he's waiting in a lobby to speak to like, some reporters or something, like a newspaper or something like that, like a news reporter office or something like that. He's waiting in the lobby, and he sees something about a dance marathon where the first place prize is a luxury yacht. He just takes that flyer, runs off, and he goes to where the dance competition is being held, and it's basically a bunch of people just dancing for as many hours as they can dance, and whoever dances the longest wins the luxury yacht. So the brother goes there. Obviously, he wants to enter the competition, win, and then get the boat, and then go look for his brother himself on the boat. But he gets there. The competition's already it's happening already. So as he arrives, two men, get eliminated from the competition. They can't go anymore. They go and they sit at their table. They meet the brother. The brother's talking to them about wanting to see yachts and like how important it is to him. And the two guys are just suddenly like, all right, well, let's just, let's take him to go see a yacht then. So they leave, and suddenly we cut. It's nighttime, and they're out by the pier, and they see some yachts, off the coast by the pier. And they randomly just go inside someone's yacht and start like going through this man's stuff on his boat. And all of this, like when I tell you from what looked like being on like an island, and the family members were talking to like a shaman or like a witch lady or something like that, and or she was telling them that she couldn't find his soul in the afterlife, so he must be alive. When we go from them like consulting with like the witch or whatever to the brother at the police station, to the brother at the newspaper office or whatever, to the brother being at the dance marathon, to the pier, to them being on a yacht just going through a guy's stuff. When at this point I looked at my watch and it had been, let me see, no, we have, let me see what, hold on, let me see if that's everything. No, there's more. Hold on. So all of that has happened. Then they get on the yacht. When they get on the yacht and they start going through everything, the owner is on the yacht, and he pulls a gun on them, and he's like, what are you doing? Confronts them, and they're like, oh, we just wanted to show our friend, this yacht. And he's like, yeah, well, you're on private property. You're not supposed to be here. And they're like, sorry, we just wanted to see the yacht. And he's got them, he's holding them up with a gun. And he's like, all right, well, I'm going to go back to sleep. He's on a bed inside the yacht. He's like, I'm going to go back to sleep. You guys can stay the night, enjoy it or whatever, but then get out of here, which was super weird to me. I was like, what? Even with the eventual reveal that happens a little bit later, I was still kind of caught off guard that he was so casual about them just staying in the yacht with him, especially when you realize that he's got a briefcase with him that has like 4 million yen in it or something like that. So, it's just, there's a lot of Scooby-Doo ass writing in this movie. This was giving me like Gilligan's Island Scooby-Doo vibes the entire movie. It's just so much convenient, goofy writing and narrative in this movie. But anyway, he tells them they can stay, so they all go to bed and hang out in the yacht that night. Everybody goes to sleep. Well, of course, when they wake up, the brother has like hijacked the yacht. He's put the sail up, and they're just out in the ocean now. They all wake up to this. The owner is obviously pissed off, and they confront the brother, and the brother's like, hey, listen, this was the opportunity of a lifetime, a gift from the gods. Like, this was divine intervention that I ended up on this yacht. I've got to go find my brother. So I'm going to keep sailing this yacht out into the seas. Even when the owner is like, tells him like, hey, I ought to punch, I should beat you up. I should punch you in the face. Get out of the captain's seat or whatever. The guy's like, no, I'm the captain now. And the dude just accepts it. He's like, well, okay. So that was like another moment where I was like, what? It was just like the reactions of the characters just didn't really seem very believable at the time to me. So what happens next? I made a note that the dialogue here is incoherent and weird. It's very choppy and doesn't make much sense. At this point, we're given the twist with the owner of the yacht. So the owner of the yacht's not the owner of the yacht. The owner of the yacht is a thief. So this is our thief character. And his name is... What was his name again? Yoshimura. So this is how we're introduced to Yoshimura. He's actually a thief, and he was hiding out on this yacht. He's got a briefcase with him. Turns out that he had like robbed a bank or like robbed a safe. He's like a safe cracker and a thief. He had robbed a safe and took like 4 million yen that he has in a briefcase on the boat with him, which is why I'm like shocked that he let them stay on the yacht. But it's not his yacht, so that does explain why he's not so pushy about, whether or not they're trespassing on his property because he doesn't care about the yacht. And it kind of explains why he doesn't fight them for control of the yacht when he wakes up, because it's not his yacht. So, at this point, the brother is, he's Ryota. He is in control. He's going to look for his brother and see if he can find his brother somewhere. And the other three guys are like, okay, well, we're out here, so we might as well just start chilling. And so they do. They're eating food. They're chatting. They kind of start getting to know each other. And the guys kind of do start to suspect, because of a radio announcement about a thief and a yacht that's missing and money that's missing out of a safe. They kind of that plays on a radio while everyone's in the room except for the brother. So the two guys that met him at the dance, I never got their name, by the way. I think one of them is like Nita or something, Neri or something like that. But I never really got the names of the two guys at the dance marathon that meet the brother. So they're just the two guys from the dance marathon. I'm sorry. But anyway. So they play they play some more music from the soundtrack. A very different vibe, but it seems to fit these scenes. And at this point, after everything I've told you, we're 11 minutes into the film. And this is actually the first scene that I remember from my childhood, is when they're eating inside of the boat. They're eating, and then it shows these really cool scenes of them sailing. There's some music that plays that I remembered from my childhood, and just scenes of them relaxing on the boat and sailing on the boat. I don't know why I like those scenes so much, but I really did, and it was the first scenes that I remember in this film. But everything that I've told you so far has happened in the first 11 minutes of the film. It's probably taken me longer to tell you about it than these actual scenes were, as in terms of their length. So when I say that the pace of this film is super fast and that it's choppy in terms of cutting, the pace is breakneck. So they end up hitting a storm. I really like the storm scenes. I thought the storm scenes were great. They use a miniature for the boat, but it's all right. They mix it in with regular footage of, a boat in the storm. It looked really good. There's lightning effects and heavy rain. And this is where you're introduced to Ebirah the first time, as, during the storm, one of his claws comes up. And anyway, their yacht gets destroyed. They end up washing up on an island. They all survive. They wake up on this island. They don't know what's going on. There is a really cool scene here that I wanted to point out. During the storm, when Ebirah shows up and, the yacht's being battered and these men are just trying to survive, you see the briefcase with the 4 million yen, fall out into the open, in the cabin of the ship, and all of the money is just, floating in the water. And I think they did a really good job of illustrating how no amount of money will save you from every situation. You know what I mean? In that situation, even with all of that money, which I don't know how much 4 million yen is because I'm an idiot, but it couldn't help them. It was absolutely worthless in that moment. And I just thought that was really good imagery, and that was really good cinematography, and the way that was shot was great. And when they wash up on the shore, the thief sees part of the briefcase in the wreckage, and he sees it, and he's like, fuck, and he throws it down, and he's so mad. And the guys come over to him and they're like, hey, what was in that briefcase? And he's like, nothing that's going to help us now. Come on, let's go, try to find some food or whatever. And he immediately lets it go. He moves on really quick, which I didn't expect. And he doesn't get mad at the other guys, which also surprised me. I thought that he would be more bitter towards them. But he lets go of the money that he had stolen, which kind of just shows you that he's in it for the love of the game. And you kind of learn that later, that he just loves cracking safes, and he loves, locks and the challenge of picking a lock. In fact, while they're on the boat, there's a scene of him making a skeleton key, and of course the guys are like, okay, yacht, mysterious briefcase. His gun, by the way, was a toy gun, which is why he doesn't use it to force them to give him control of the boat back. It's just a toy gun. So they're like, all right, this guy, we're pretty sure this guy's a thief, and by now he's like, does that matter? But I just thought that there's a lesson around that money that's really interesting, in the way that he lets it go so quick. He's quick to verbalize that, it's not going to help them, that that's not what they need right now, and the way that it was shot. It stood out to me a lot, and I felt like I wanted to point it out because, even though it's a very subtle piece of the film, it's a small, subtle piece of the film, I thought it was great. I just thought it was great for what it was. At this time, this was also when I noticed that, we don't have any girls in the film so far. So a lot of the Godzilla films introduce like a, important female character very quickly into the film. From the very first original Godzilla film, women and girls and love stories have like, typically they have a presence in these films. Even going back to the very first film with Dr. Serizawa and Emiko. So, I noticed, I was like, oh, this is four guys out on this tropical island, no girl, and no love story, which is different. Also, no one here is a journalist. It seems to always be a newspaper reporter being one of the stars of the film, or more recently, a NASA astronaut. So, or somebody in the space program, right? So that was something that I noticed around this time in the film. And they also believe that there are other people on the island because as they're exploring the island, they find a sword. They also see a boat that is circling the island or is around in the island in the water, and it's spraying this yellow liquid, which immediately I was like, okay, they must be spraying that yellow liquid to keep Ebirah away from their ships and stuff, which is what they're using it for. And then we're immediately introduced to Dr. Serizawa returning, the actor who played Dr. Serizawa. Dr. Serizawa, I don't know his name. I don't know the name of the character that he plays in this movie. I don't even know if he was named, but he's the commander of like this military presence that is on the island. And the ship arrives, at a pier. And of course, the men, they want to be rescued, so they're rushing to try to get this ship's attention. But when the ship arrives, they see that there's armed guards escorting slaves that look like natives from a nearby island. They're escorting them off the ship, which I was like, damn, like slaves from a nearby island, that's pretty heavy. Like we got human trafficking and shit. So not something I expected to see, considering the rest of the film so far had been kind of goofy and lighthearted. And then of course that's when I saw there's our girl, there's Miss Namikawa, who obviously she's playing Dio in this film. I may just call her Miss Namikawa forever. She left an impression on me. But I saw her and I was like, okay, so this is where we're gonna have our female character. I don't know if and there is no love story in this. So there never was any type of romancing or which I was kind of surprised. I thought maybe, but no, they don't do that here, which is probably for the best because I don't really think there was room for it in this film. But she's among the slaves, and during an attempted escape, she's able to slip away, takes off running, and she's able to escape. The slaves that attempt to escape, that cause the distraction that allows her to get away, a couple of them are able to get to a boat, and they're able to run off on a boat. Run probably not being the best word, but they not swim, sail off in a boat, I guess. And of course Ebirah is out there waiting for them, kills them. The armed guards not being able to catch them and not shooting them, I thought was wild. They waited till the islanders, the slaves got like 100 yards away before they started firing shots. I thought it was kind of wild. And then the other thing is, I was really caught off guard by the kill here because Ebirah smashes their boat and then he takes his claw. So, Ebirah is a giant lobster. Ebirah uses his claw and stabs through both of their bodies and like holds them up for the camera and then goes back under the water. I was like, damn, that's pretty personal, So I feel like they were, I feel like they had to know that like a giant lobster is still not really that intimidating. So this was a good way to kind of get your attention. I thought that was pretty good. Anyway, the girl ends up running into the guys that are on the island. Our boys, our main characters. She ends up running into them. She pulls out a knife, in case maybe, they're troops and she has to defend herself. And I'm just like, where the fuck did she get a knife? And later I'm going to be like, where the fuck did she get a bird? But we'll get to that. But I don't know where she pulled this knife from or how she had a knife on her. As like a captured slave. I don't know. Like, where were you hiding that knife? Like, they're just in like native, like basically like bikini kind of, I don't know. It was strange. But anyway, they introduce themselves to each other, and they work together. The soldiers start coming and pause. The soldiers start shooting at them, and the soldiers are coming to arrest them or capture them, and they take off running together. So now, Miss Namikawa has joined our boys, and they're a group now. There's also a really funny comedic scene here that stood out to me because, the movie's been, it's very light in its tone, but there hadn't really been any real comedy so far. Not that I picked up on cultural differences. Maybe there was. They're running along the edge of a cliff. They're way high up above, the sea, and they're running away, and they've got some distance between them and the guards. And, the camera's behind them as they're like, the camera's way off to the side over here. So you're seeing them from one angle as they're running in front of you, like across this way, right? And, the camera shows the thief or whatever, and he's like, hey, we're going to have to jump. And you're thinking like, oh, they're going to jump into the ocean. And so, big jump. It's shown from behind. He does a big jump. Next character, big jump. They all jump. And then the last guy, he looks terrified to jump. And he finally jumps. And they're just jumping down like 4 feet. If that, like maybe 3 feet to another ledge below. So when they cut to that and show that that's what they were jumping to, it's actually hilarious. So I got a good laugh out of that. Anyway, there's a cave in this area. So they decide to like make this cave their hideout, and then another storm shows up, luckily, and it scares off the guards and the military, and so they're able to kind of hide out in this cave. All right, so you end up finding out that Miss Namikawa, I might just call her that in every film as a running joke, but Miss Namikawa in this film is from Infant Island, and when the brother, Ryota, finds this out, he asks her questions about his brother, and sure enough, Yata, whose name I hope I'm pronouncing correctly, is on Infant Island. So she's from Infant Island. The slaves are from Infant Island. That's where they're getting their slaves from, their forced labor. And Yata had washed up on the island about 2 months prior to where we're at in the film right now. So we know that's where he is. Obviously, Ryota wants to try to get to Infant Island to save his brother. This force that's on the island is called the Red Bamboo Force. They're bringing the islanders here. Turns out they're making the islanders work and produce this yellow liquid that they're spraying in the water to keep Ebirah from, destroying their ships. So in a lot of ways, this is working for them because they're able to bring forced labor onto this island to basically like a compound or a facility that they have there. And they're able to conduct their experiments and everything else that they want to do. Ebirah keeps anybody that might interrupt them away, and then they use this mysterious liquid to keep Ebirah from harming them. So that's kind of what's going on there. And the sword that they had found earlier, it belongs to one of the islanders that had been, kidnapped and brought to the island. She also like prays to Mothra that Mothra will come and save them, and we find out that Mothra has become a moth again. So Mothra is in its adult form in this movie. It's no longer a larva, no longer like the small little crawling poop that we were getting in the previous movies. And Mothra is asleep. Mothra is asleep, and they're waiting for Mothra to wake up and come and save them. And Mothra, I don't know if it's budget cuts, probably, because Mothra sleeps this whole fucking movie, bro. Mothra is asleep, and we'll talk about that more later. So, they come up with a plan to wait for Mothra. The thief has another like jokey line here where he's they're in the cave and they're hanging out. It's maybe been a couple of days, and he's like, we got to come up with some kind of plan. And they're like, why? We're just gonna wait for Mothra. He's like, no, you don't understand. Like they're still looking for us. And the other guys are like, I don't think that the red bamboo guys are still looking for us. Like I think they've probably given up by now. And the thief makes a joke. Well, you've clearly never had the cops after you. And then everybody kind of looks at him and he's like, anyway, moving on. And it was just kind of it was funny. It was a funny moment. I appreciated it. I thought it was humorous. Like, I don't mind comedy in my Godzilla films, especially when it's done this way. It's a little bit, I think it's more divisive when they do it with Godzilla, which they do. They do in this film. I think it's less divisive when they do it with the humans. I think that the humans give you an opportunity to have lighter moments while still maintaining like the heavy, serious nature of the monsters. So anyway, I liked that scene. They also find out that Godzilla is asleep in the cave. So this was pretty cool. They kind of look around the cave, and it turns out that this cave goes like, it's way high up, like I had said earlier. And in this cave, there's just Godzilla. Like he's laying on a pile of rocks at the bottom of the cave, just like sleeping. So it looks kind of cute, like he's just there napping. So anyway, Godzilla's in the cave. So they're like, okay, we got to get out of here. So they leave the cave, and they're like, let's scout out the enemy, see what we can learn about the enemy. So here we are. They basically construct like some bushes, like a fence with like bushes and stuff, so that they can do like that Scooby-Doo shit, like they're sneaking up on the compound, and they're holding up this like wall of bushes to like sit down and hide behind. So they're doing this. They end up making a little bit of noise. They have spotlights in the compound, and they start, shining the spotlights down where they're at. And the girl, and the scene's been going on for like 20-30 seconds. The girl has a bird in her hand, and she releases a bird from behind the bush, and they're like, oh, it's just a bird. And so they, leave him alone. And I'm like, where the fuck did you get this bird? Like earlier it was the knife. Where the fuck did you get this knife? And now I'm like, where the fuck did you get this bird? I honestly thought that the bird just teleported into her hand like mid-scene, but when I watched it back, the entire time that they were sneaking up to the compound with like this wall of bushes, she has this bird in her hand. I don't know where the fuck she got it, but it was there the whole time. I just didn't notice it because she's kind of in the background. She's not like in focus when they're approaching. So, just whatever. Awfully convenient. How did you capture a bird? Like, just got a pigeon from New York just in her hand, ready to let go. So anyway, just thought that was funny. So this is when we get into our thief a little bit more, into like his motivations and his personality, because this is obviously a locked up compound with locked doors, etc., etc. And our thief, he gets so excited when he sees locked doors. He's got his skeleton key. He's like, oh, I can do this. You can just see him just cooking it up in his head, thinking about how he's gonna lock pick all these doors and stuff. So you can see again that he's not a thief because he's greedy. Like, he clearly didn't care that much about the money. This man just loves breaking a lock, I guess. So anyway, he uses his skeleton key, which by the way opens everything in the movie. And they get through a bunch of doors, sneaking into the base. They find out that this base is a lab. We don't know exactly what kind of lab yet, but you see like, a couple of, scientists walking around in lab coats. So they mention that it's a lab. Then we get a couple sequences of them sneaking around inside the compound, inside the facility. This is maybe the worst like sneaking, like spy scenes I've ever seen in my life. Like, they're literally like just walking around hallways, opening doors and sticking their whole body in there to look around, not even like cracking the door and trying to peek. They just open the door. Who's in here? Okay, I think come on, guys. And, then when they're in like long, narrow hallways, and, when they think they hear somebody, they just, up against the wall, you can see them perfectly. You can see them perfectly. Like they're two of the guys are even wearing like yellow jackets and stuff. So it's just like the sneaking is horrible. It's horrible. The set is not built for it. There's nowhere for them to hide. They're way out in the open. They're not like crawling around. They're not even like hunched over. They're just so meh. But it is what it is. More convenient writing as they sneak into a room that's like an inventory or like stocking room where there's materials and stuff, and they just walk on in and they're like, oh, what are these? And they pick up these giant bulbs. It looks like maybe it's throwable grenade or bombs, but they're smoke bombs. So they just find some smoke bombs and they're like, we should take some. So they take some of the smoke bombs, and then Miss Namikawa sees a wire, like a bunch of wiring that's in the shape of a circle that's been wrapped and wrapped and wrapped, and she's like, oh, a necklace, and she puts it on like a necklace. And I just feel like she would know it's not. Like, I know she's from Infant Island, but anyway, she puts it on and the guys are like, hey, we're not shopping, let's go. So that wire is going to come into play later, and it does. So they keep sneaking around. They find out that it is a heavy water plant for making atomic bombs. So finally, we get into like what this group is up to. So this looks like some kind of like private military or something. We're not really sure if it's associated with any sort of particular government, but they are there to make atomic bombs, probably to sell them to other countries for profit, etc. So that's what's going on in this facility. They end up sneaking around, and they finally do. At the very end, they get down and they crawl right into Dr. Serizawa again, because they don't like look around. They just crawl. And then the thief is in the lead, and he goes around a corner and he crawls right into the feet of Dr. Serizawa. So Dr. Serizawa is like gonna arrest them, but they got the smoke bombs, right? They got the smoke bombs, so they start throwing the smoke bombs, and they scatter. They get out of there. Big Scooby-Doo sequence, with like shooting and maybe some music, and guys just running and scattering around and smoke bombs going off. It's not very serious at all. Our group gets separated, and during the separation, one of the brothers is running by like some kind of balloon. It's like clearly some kind of like scouting balloon or something like that. He gets his foot tripped up in it, and then of course the balloon takes off and picks him up with it. And so Yata's brother, Ryota, his foot's caught in the balloon. He ends up like pulling himself up on the rope, and now he's hanging by a rope on a giant balloon that picks him up and just starts carrying him through the sky. And Miss Namikawa even makes a comment that maybe if he's lucky he'll land. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I don't know if it's like allergies. I don't know if it's allergies or if I have like some kind of head cold or something. I've been having some kind of respiratory issue for like 3 weeks, dude. Like, just will not leave me alone. But anyway. So, yeah, she makes this comment like, if he's lucky, maybe he'll float all the way to Infant Island, which is just like, okay, well, obviously that's what's going to happen, even though that seems incredibly random and unpredictable, but that's what's going to happen. So fine, yet another. It's just I don't think it's very creative. I find convenient writing the opposite of creative writing. It's just not creative to me to keep constantly like just writing these convenient excuses and writing these convenient lines to explain away any kind of critique or detail. Like, I know they had less of a budget to work with, but like, I don't think that that's a good excuse for bad writing. I can understand like, less writing, or I can understand like, oh, we don't have as much material to work with, but it's the constant like kind of hand waving of things that don't make sense or that are seem extremely unlikely, that I find to be a little bit immersion breaking in this film. Anyway, so the brother goes on the balloon. He's floating away to Infant Island. One of the guys gets captured and thrown into like this captive area where all the Infant Island slaves are, making this yellow liquid. So it's one of the guys from the dance marathon. He gets thrown in there. And the thief, Miss Namikawa, and the other guy from the dance marathon, they make it back to the cave where Godzilla is. This is when they realize that Godzilla is alive. Previously, they just noticed that Godzilla was laying there. I guess they had assumed he was dead, but they actually hear Godzilla's heartbeat while they're there this time, and they realize he's moving a little bit and breathing, and they realize, holy shit, he's alive. This is also where it's revealed by the islanders that they are forced to make the yellow liquid to keep Ebirah away. Brother lands on Infant Island. So this one, these fucking twins, these fucking twins, these Infant Island twins. I swear to God, I hate them. I'm sorry. Like, I know that they're like a huge part of Godzilla lore. I know that people love the Infant Island, like the Mothra twins. I can't stand them. I just can't stand them. They're somewhat entertaining, but they're more so annoying and secretly evil, I think. And I'll give you an example of why right now. So Ryota lands on the island. He lands right in the middle of the islanders who are on Infant Island, like praying for Mothra to wake up. So they're like, Mothra, they're doing their song. And he just lands from his balloon right in the middle of them. He's exhausted. Yata's right there, so they reunite. It's nice. And then he tells Yata, like, oh man, we gotta go back and get the rest of the people. The islanders are slaves. They're being made slaves. And Yata's like, Bahu, and he's like, the red bamboo forces are enslaving the islanders. And nobody seems to know what Ryota's talking about except for the twins. The twins are like, oh, we know about the Red Bamboo Force, and they start spilling the lore of like the Red Bamboo Force. They come to the island, and the island that they're from is called Devil's Island. They're actually our foes. They're our enemies because this is Infant Island, and they're on Devil's Island, and they come here and they kidnap the islanders and make them slaves. Throughout all of this, nobody seems to know. None of the islanders, nobody. You don't get any hint whatsoever because they're explaining this to everybody all at once is what it looks like. Now, maybe there's something I'm missing or not noticing. Maybe there's something in the translation that doesn't communicate it well. But the way it appears to me is that these twins didn't fucking tell anybody. They didn't tell not a goddamn person on the fucking island that, oh, there's this like military unit that shows up and captures you people and turns them into slaves. I guess they thought that their friends and family were just going missing and they never knew what happened to them. And these fucking twins, bro, weren't telling anybody a goddamn thing. And I'll tell you, it lines up perfectly with how they've been acting in previous films. If you remember, what was it? Was it, it was, I think it might have been Mothra versus Godzilla. I could be wrong, but anyway, the twins from Infant Island are on mainland Japan Island, and they're talking to people, and this is when you have that girl. No, it's Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, I think. So when you have this girl that has been turned into like zombified, she's like being controlled by the aliens, or she has like an alternate identity, like she's part Venusian. She's from Venus. Part of her is from Venus. Anyway, doesn't matter. She's telling a bunch of people on a boat. I went over this in a previous film. I've got to talk about it again. There's a boat that's leaving with the Infant Island twins on it to sail back to Infant Island, and she tells everybody on this boat, please, you can't leave on this boat. You'll all die. And everybody ignores her because she looks homeless and she's just like spouting off like a zombie that like, oh, calamity will come. And the twins are like, she's telling the truth. But they don't tell anybody, like, oh, believe her. Keep in mind that in this film, the twins are celebrities. They're fucking celebrities. They could tell everybody on this boat, we should listen to her and get off this boat. They don't. The twins just sneak off the boat themselves and then reunite with our main characters in that film later, and they're like, oh, we got off the boat because we knew that she was telling the truth. We knew what she meant. That's their line. We knew what she meant. And of course, it turns out that Godzilla just kills everybody on that boat. That boat's like sailing to Infant Island, runs across Godzilla in that film. He hits it with his atomic breath, I think, and blows it up and kills everybody on board. And those fucking twins knew, bro. Those fucking twins knew, and they didn't save anybody but themselves. And here they are. Here we are, like 2 movies later, and these twins it's the same fucking behavior. I don't even think it's the same twins. I think these are 2 different actresses portraying the twins. But this is a running theme, and I would love to see a video on YouTube, like some kind of like game theory type video that does like a deep dive on these twins, because I just have this like feeling like these twins have to be like, I would love to see a fan theory about these twins being secretly evil. I don't know if there's enough lore there to work with to make that YouTube video, but please, somebody make that video, even if it's only 10 minutes long. I'm telling you, I hate these twins. Anyway, rant's over. So the twins knew about the red bamboo. Doesn't seem like anybody else did. They go over the lore. Here we go. Secret villains. That's it. So then, back to the cave. We have, our desperate protagonists here. Miss Namikawa, one of the guys from the dance marathon, and the thief, and they're like, we got to come up with a plan. We got to do something. We've been separated. One dude's over on Infant Island. One dude's captured. We got to do something. What do we do? The guy from the dance marathon says we should wake up Godzilla. And here we have like some interesting dialogue. He suggests that they should wake up Godzilla themselves, which I thought was interesting considering historically Godzilla killed everybody. But he says we should wake up Godzilla ourselves. And the movies have been moving more and more towards like making Godzilla a good guy. The thief is like, we can't do that, the nuclear bombs will destroy everything, but if we wake Godzilla, he'll probably destroy the world too. And one of the guys says, no, Godzilla would never do that. He wouldn't do that. And I thought that was a very interesting line. So clearly we're still kind of working on this narrative of, Godzilla's, good guy versus bad guy, whatever personality they want to give him. And whether or not he's to be feared or whether or not he's the hero. So, we see some of this brought up in the dialogue. And finally, that wire that Miss Namikawa was using as a necklace comes into play because they decide to wake up Godzilla. And what they're going to do is they're going to take that sword that they found earlier. They're going to plant it at the top of the cave, which is at the peak of the island. They're going to plant the sword with the metal facing up, and they're going to take that wire, attach it to the sword, lead it down to Godzilla, wrap it around Godzilla or have it touch Godzilla or something, and they're going to wait for lightning to strike the sword and wake up Godzilla. This plan makes no fucking sense. They're desperate. The cave that they're in is slowly, being like the enemy forces are encroaching. They're looking for them, and they're getting closer and closer to this cave. According to the film, it's 3 days later before, this plan works out, obviously, and Godzilla wakes up. But they didn't know that. It's not like they knew that a storm was coming. They plant the sword anyway. It never showed them attach the wire to Godzilla. How did they get the wire how did they even know the wire was touching Godzilla? Godzilla's way down at the bottom of this cave. So it's just, again, some Scooby-Doo writing here, some convenient writing. It just kind of skips forward and we see, a shot of the sword and the wire, and we can assume it's touching Godzilla. So that's what's happening. Also, at the same time as this, our other main character who's been locked up with the Infant Island natives comes up with the plan. Hey, I know what we'll do. Instead of making the yellow liquid from these fruits, let's make a fake batch of yellow liquid. We'll just, we'll make a fake batch using just the leaves without any of the fruit in it. And that way, they'll have a fake batch of the yellow liquid that doesn't keep Ebirah away. Why did he come up with this plan? How does this help them? We don't fucking know. How are you going to still make the yellow liquid with, different ingredients and not including the fruit? Like, just nothing is like, there's no like substance to this. It's just like, hey, this is what we're going to do. And, you just have to go with it. And I think that, like, the key to enjoying this film is that you have to roll with it, because I don't think this film holds up to really any amount of scrutiny. It's still a fun movie. Like, I don't want to sound like I hate it. It's still a fun movie. I like it. It's from my childhood, and it's fun. Like, I still like it, somewhat for the most part, but it just does not hold up to any scrutiny at all. So anyway, so they're gonna make a fake batch of the liquid. The storm arrives after 3 days. Ebirah shows up. Lightning strikes the sword, wakes up Godzilla. The brothers from Infant Island, Ryota and Yata, they've taken a small boat. They've got some of the liquid, by the way. The Infant Island twins give them some of the liquid. Where did they supply that liquid to their own people? I don't know, but I don't trust those twins, bro. They're in the water when the storm shows up. Ebirah wakes up as the brothers are getting close to the island. Ebirah, goes to kill the brothers, like breaks their boat, and is going to kill the brothers the same way he killed the other guys that were out in the water, out at sea on a boat. But Godzilla shows up, and Godzilla emerges from the mountain, and we're about to have like our first battle between Ebirah and Godzilla. As far as the suit goes, this is one of my least favorite Godzilla suits. Like they said, it's been modified so that the actor had more mobility for his arms, but this Godzilla is all about arm movement. This is arm movement Godzilla. This is Godzilla arm. This is arm Godzilla. He's constantly like, this dude was so happy to be able to use his arms more in this suit. I think that the head of the suit was made out of maybe better looking materials, but the shape of the head is not good, and I don't think the proportions of the head or the face look that great. And also there's less movement for the mouth and less expression on the face, like less movement with the eyes and eyebrows and things like that. And so what you end up having is, you end up having a head for Godzilla that maybe is made of like higher quality materials, but it has no expression. There's no expression here. It's kind of just like a very blank faced Godzilla. The proportions seem weird. The shape is weird. It looks kind of bad. And the body of Godzilla here is very flimsy. It looks like the actor is in a suit, like a rubber suit. So we have that kind of like flimsy, wrinkly, shaky body that doesn't look like firm. So this is definitely a suit that I never really liked. I remember even as a kid, I didn't like this suit that much. And I don't know if it's the same actor in this suit that's been in other films, but the movement of Godzilla, the portrayal of Godzilla in this film, I just didn't like as much personally. But anyway, he wakes up. His first interaction with Ebirah is that they play beach volleyball, apparently. So Godzilla walks up, Ebirah's in the water. Ebirah's like, well, what's up? Do you want it or not? What's good? And Godzilla like kicks a giant boulder towards Ebirah. Ebirah slaps the boulder back to Godzilla. Godzilla hits the boulder, and they're just treating it like a volleyball. They're hitting it back and forth and back and forth. And Godzilla eventually Ebirah catches it with his claw, and he winds up like a pitcher and throws it at Godzilla, and Godzilla hits it. He back fists it for some reason and knocks the boulder off to the side. It ends up hitting the facility, and now the people in the facility are like, oh shit, Godzilla's here, we gotta do something, we gotta get out of here, we gotta do, oh shit, everybody starts panicking because they're like, this boulder that Godzilla hits, it hits like a communication tower or a scout tower, and so everybody starts freaking out. Godzilla starts to walk into the water towards Ebirah, and Ebirah just his is so funny. I don't know why. He starts like splashing like kids do when they're in a swimming pool. You know, when somebody's coming towards you in a swimming pool and you slap the top of the water towards them and create a wave and splash them with the wave. Like Ebirah starts doing that with his claw, like slapping the water at Godzilla, and Godzilla's like, oh, you know, it's goofy. Like you kind of feel bad for Ebirah. Like I remember as this was happening, I was like, man, I feel so bad for Ebirah because you really, like, what are you going to do, bro? Like, Ebirah doesn't even seem that aggressive towards Godzilla. I mean, they play volleyball first, and then, you know, he's, like, slapping water at him. It's just not serious. And then Godzilla, like, gets annoyed after getting the water slapped on him, and he immediately hits Ebirah with his atomic breath. I like it a lot more in this film. His atomic breath is definitely, we're getting more into the... it's more like a blast now, you know. It's left the mist origin completely behind, and now it's not like a beam either. It's definitely more like a blast, blue blast, and only the tips of his scales light up. He hits Ebirah and fries his ass immediately with this. Just fucking burns his ass, and Ebirah just flies back, like backflips back and just lands. You just see the bottom of this fucking lobster sinking into the water. And at this point, I'll be honest with you, I was feeling bad for Ebirah because I was like, God damn, like you just gonna get your ass whooped, bro. So the fight was extremely one-sided. I kind of feel bad for the shrimp monster. It's a lobster, but whatever. He's getting the shit kicked out of him. That's funny. He ends up sweeping Godzilla's legs out from under him, and they have some underwater fighting, which I thought was cool. But even then, like, I think like when they start fighting underwater, Godzilla starts punching him in the head and then grabs a rock and just starts beating Ebirah on the top of the head with a rock. Ebirah is like almost defenseless here. And, you know, he grabs Godzilla like his arm and like tries to grab him with his claws a little bit and pinch him with his claws. And he acts like maybe he'll stab him, but it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere in this fight or the later fight. So Ebirah retreats and Godzilla's like, you know, hell yeah. So that's the end of that. Godzilla goes back to the land, and then we cut to the next day. So the brothers reunite with the cave group, and now they want to go and they want to go save the others. They want to save the other guy, the other protagonist that's been locked up with the infant island slaves, and save them as well. So they end up running into the guards. However, they run into the guards. They get spotted and they get separated again. So we have a really interesting scene after this separation. Everybody's kind of running in different directions. The girl is running away and she ends up running and Godzilla shows up. So she's running in the direction that she's running in. Godzilla shows up and walks out. And she's about to get completely murdered by like these, you know, soldiers or this military guard or whatever, the red bamboo or whatever. And of course, you know, Godzilla shows up, so they run off. And, you know, she's there and Godzilla sees her and she falls down. Of course, you know, they do that. You know, like I'm a girl and I can't run straight. So she trips over everything and keeps falling down, and she's scared of Godzilla, but Godzilla just keeps, they have this weird like King Kong moment. I don't know if this is left over from the original script because this is very like King Kong coded. But they have this, like, Godzilla has this interest in this girl. I mean, it's Miss Namikawa, so I get it. But, like, he, like, just keeps looking at her. He doesn't, like, attack her or anything like that. She's scared, but she doesn't know what to do, so she's just leaning up against a rock trying to blend in, which she doesn't do a good job of at all. So Godzilla just, like, watches. He just keeps an eye on her for, like, whatever reason, man. He's just like, all right, well, me and you were chilling. And I think what's going on is Godzilla's protecting her. It's not really made clear in this scene exactly what's going on in Godzilla's head. It's probably like literally just a hamster on a wheel. But, you know, because I mean, if you've ever seen The Return of Godzilla or Godzilla 1985, like Godzilla's brain's like this big or something like that. But anyway, we'll get to that later. So anyway, Godzilla has an interest in her. So she's just like, staying still, not moving. Godzilla's not chasing her. He ends up sitting down, like he just sits down on his tail. He just takes a squat, and he starts like chilling. And then he looks like maybe he's just gonna doze off. And so the plan becomes that she's just gonna escape when Godzilla falls asleep. And then a giant condor shows up, which I think that's like the name of the bird in the movie. Like that's the name of the monster is giant condor, but it's like a repurposed Rodan suit or Rodan like prosthetic or whatever. I don't even think prosthetic is the right word, but it doesn't matter. This giant condor that looks like Rodan shows up, scares the shit out of the girl. She starts screaming to try to wake Godzilla up. Godzilla wakes up, fights the bird. He hits the bird with his atomic breath. The bird ends up like splashing in the water, dies. Godzilla's like, yeah, bitch. And then there's this weird moment where, of course, Godzilla has these wild arm movements going on again, which is so weird. It's almost like the Trump dance. Like he's just like, I don't know what he's doing. I really don't, but he's just, this dude was so happy to be able to move his arms. So anyway, there's a weird moment after this where, Godzilla sees the girl down there. She sees Godzilla. And, after he gets rid of the bird, he looks at her and he does this motion. He looks at her and he points up like this. It looks like that's what he's doing. Like he's gesturing up. And so I guess I don't know what to make of that. I don't know what that scene is supposed to represent. I'm actually going to ask it. I'm actually going to see if there's anything about that scene where Godzilla looks at the main female character played by former now see, I've said Miss Namikawa so much, I think her name is Dio, but anyway, can't remember her name. Let's see. Godzilla looks at her and seems to point up. It's after the giant condor fight scene. All right, I'm looking to see if there's anything about what that scene means. So anyway, while AI is doing all the research that I'm too lazy to do, let me get back to this. So after Godzilla points up, which I guess he means like, he's protecting her from something that could be dangerous in the air, like the giant condor, then jets show up. I'm not exactly sure why. But jets show up. I think they mentioned it earlier after he hit the control tower. They called for backup or something. But jets show up. And, the jets, by the way, they should have completely killed Miss Namikawa or Dio. Because the first thing the jets do is they shoot bombs at the ground in front of Godzilla, and huge explosions go everywhere. So she should be dead immediately, but for some reason she's not. The jet battle is actually pretty iconic because like his fight with the jets here is the best fight that he has with jets, I think, in the films so far. There's this really cool scene where a jet, flies by and he shoots it with his breath. Another one flies by his face and he shoots it with his breath. He hits one with his tail. The best scene was a jet comes by and Godzilla like catches it in his hand and destroys it and throws it like trash into the water. Fucking cool scene. Really cool like combat scene. Even though, she should have been fried by those bombs from the jets. By the way, I got an answer on that scene. So it says that there was some conversation about this scene with him pointing up. It says Godzilla's not really pointing up at something. He's scratching the side of his nose with one finger. That gesture happens after he kills the giant condor while Dio is nearby, which makes it look like he may be posing for her, but the documented meaning is a Japanese pop culture joke. Godzilla is mimicking the signature nose rubbing mannerism of Yuzo Kayama. You know what? Let me just show you what I'm what I'm reading here. Okay. So he's mimicking the signature nose-rubbing mannerism of Yuzo Kayama, a hugely popular Toho actor and singer. Kayama starred in Toho's Young Guy films, Wakadaisho films, which were also associated with director Jun Fukuda's lighter, youth-oriented style. Japanese sources describe it as Godzilla proudly scratching his nose after the fight. Basically, I handled that victory flourish, not a literal gesture towards the sky. There's also a second layer to the scene. Godzilla's interest in Dio is intentional. The movie originated as a King Kong project, and the script retained several Kong-like traits when Kong was replaced by Godzilla, being revived by electricity. Oh, that's right, because they said in King Kong vs. Godzilla that King Kong got stronger if he was electrocuted, acting more playful and showing unusual interest in a beautiful woman. So the broader scene can be read as Godzilla seeing Dio, defeating the condor that interrupted the moment, then doing a cocky Kayama-style pose. Okay. But there's no known production explanation saying he's trying to actually communicate, so he's showing off. That's funny. That's funny. Okay, so he's showing off. He's doing a victory pose. I'm sure Shiro Honda loved that. So okay, all right, cool. You know, it's whatever. Like, it doesn't bother me knowing that. It's funny. It's given that the movie is already what it is. I think it's fine. So then Godzilla moves on to destroy the facility, the red bamboo facility. The thief and Yada save the islanders and reunite with the others. And then we have the military sets the island to self-destruct as they try to abandon the island. Obviously, the military, the Red Bamboo Force, leaves the military on a ship. They're spraying that yellow liquid. Guess what doesn't work anymore? So, Ebirah shows up again and kills all of them. The main characters try to stop the countdown to it's like a 2-hour countdown to a self-destruct of the entire island. They're not able to stop it. So they have to escape. And in order to escape, they start like basically building. They somehow, in the span of like this 2 hours, cut down trees and use bushes and use rope that they find to put together a giant basket that they can all fit in, that Mothra can carry them out of there with. So that's the plan. They start working on that. And then we go to the second fight between Ebirah and Godzilla. Let's see. What's next? The humans need Mothra. Yeah, again, like Mothra has slept the entire movie. Crazy. I wrote that the Ebirah and Godzilla fight here is pretty mid, to use language that's a little bit younger than myself. Basically, the second fight between Ebirah and Godzilla is more of the first. There's some underwater fighting. Godzilla's punching Ebirah. I think he hits him with the breath again. Ebirah's trying to use the claws to grab Godzilla's wrists, grab Godzilla by the neck. But still mostly ineffective. The stabbing is ineffective. And I think what really hurts this fight is that it feels like there's no fight scene with Godzilla and Ebirah that's more than like 3 seconds long. Like it's like 3 to 5 seconds of them fighting, and then a cut to the humans and what they're doing, and then 3 to 4 seconds of them fighting, and then a cut to the humans. There is a cool scene where Ebirah grabs Godzilla's arm, and Godzilla does another judo throw and throws Ebirah over and slams him in the water. Poor Ebirah. I mean, he gets fucking mopped in this movie. Oh, sorry, that's my cat. Hold on one second. I gotta open this door for my cat. I'm being bossed around by a cat. Give me 1 second. Sorry, I don't have time to... I closed the door to keep the cat out while I'm recording. I have just 2 cats. But I closed the door to keep the cats out while I'm recording, but I don't I don't have time to edit this, which is why these videos suck so much and they're so long and there's so much yapping in them. I just don't have time to edit them. Like, I have an editor that edits stuff for my gaming channel. I don't know if I'll ever put him on one of these, but yeah, it just is what it is, man. So I'm sorry about the the interruptions. Anyway, it's just not a good fight. There's constant cutaways, and you get no sustained action. And I'm pretty sure the reason why is because, again, like, I mean, how interesting could this fight be? You'd have to get extremely creative to make a good fight between Godzilla and Ebirah, to make a really good, believable fight that you can get behind as a viewer. And I mean, you've seen the script for the rest of the movie, and how like poorly written a lot of the dialogue is, and how poorly explained a lot of character motivations and stuff is, like how convenient the writing is. So that there's not going to be anything really creative for these fights. So it's kind of an underwhelming fight, but at the same time, it completely met my expectations. It was somewhat memorable because, again, I had low expectations because this is a giant lobster. We're coming off of 2 movies with King Ghidorah, so it's like, man, this is a huge downgrade. But I feel like they tried to do as much with it as they could. The breath is cool. Godzilla beats the shit out of him, which is, it's nice to see Godzilla looking extremely strong again. Godzilla looked good in Invasion of Astro Monster, though, so, it is what it is. So Godzilla ends up defeating Ebirah by ripping his claws off. And then Ebirah falls into the water, sinks into the water. We don't know that Ebirah is dead, but Godzilla ripped the claws off of Ebirah, which was pretty sick. Again, I feel like they did about as much as they could have done with this, with these fight scenes. But Ebirah did get more shots in this fight. He got more strikes with his claws on Godzilla, and when he got Godzilla underwater, he got in some shots underwater. So, they tried to give Ebirah, I think as much as they could realistically give him for a giant lobster. And then Mothra shows up, to pick up the crate of people and take them to Infant Island. You have kind of a moment where Mothra and Godzilla interact, and it's kind of interesting because Mothra shows up and Mothra lands, and Mothra is looking at Godzilla, and Godzilla's looking at Mothra. Godzilla's just destroyed Ebirah, and so they start talking. Godzilla's roaring at Mothra, and Mothra is squeaking or squealing, shrieking, whatever, back at Godzilla. So they're clearly talking. They teamed up in the last couple of movies. So I'm not really sure what they want to do here. But whatever conversation they had, Godzilla wasn't feeling it. So Godzilla ends up shooting his atomic breath towards Mothra. Mothra gets up, flies around Godzilla, and ends up using one of its wings to just basically clothesline Godzilla, and shoulder tackle, clothesline, just sends him flying. Godzilla goes rolling over, and while Godzilla's recovering from that, Mothra flies over, picks up the people, and escapes with them while Godzilla's getting up, and Godzilla's like, "You son of a bitch." And then, what's interesting is that you have this where it's okay, I guess Godzilla is still not a good guy. He's still, there's still some neutral gray area there. But then as Mothra's carrying the people away, they start talking about how they feel sorry for Godzilla, and, Godzilla never hurt us. Godzilla actually helped us escape. He never hurt us. He never did anything bad to any of us. So there's these very sympathetic lines of dialogue being said about Godzilla, and then they start yelling at Godzilla to get off the island before it explodes because they don't want to see Godzilla harmed. And at the very last second, Godzilla jumps off of the island into the water. The island explodes and is just completely destroyed. Godzilla swims off. The people are really happy to see that he's still alive. There is a small mention about atomic bombs. One of the main characters says, he has some kind of, lines about how, let's just hope that atomic bombs are never used again. And if they are used, they're used, with respect, and they're used, for good. And it's kind of funny because the thief is standing beside. I think it's the brother, like Ryota, that makes that says that line, but I could be wrong. But the thief kind of says, "All right, thanks, Professor." Like, kind of like, "All right," like, like kind of jokey, kind of acknowledging that this character is giving random exposition to the audience or whatever. It was written pretty well the way that the thief responded. And then the thief makes a comment about how maybe it's time for him to turn his life around and maybe he doesn't need to be a criminal anymore. And so, he's going to, turn around and be a good guy. And he mentioned earlier when they were trying to free the islanders, he mentioned that he, always had a soft spot for heroes. So I guess now he wants to be one. And so, wholesome moment, Godzilla escaped to the end, and that's the end of the movie. And so that's Ebirah, the Horror of the Deep. Horror of the Deep. Interesting name for this film, considering that, he just doesn't look that terrifying. Knowing what I know about this movie, originally being a King Kong film, having a much lower budget, you end up getting a different director, and it's not really clear if that was intentional or if that was just a coincidence. Seems like it was just circumstance. I'm glad they were able to get a lot of the Godzilla actors. And, I appreciate that this director did not want to just copy Ishiro Honda. He wanted to kind of, put his own spin on it. And I think that he was successful in some ways. This is a lighter toned, more family friendly Godzilla film from the Showa era that's not garbage. It's really not, it's just, and I think honestly, what saves it is that even though the writing is, I won't say it's horrible, but it is incredibly convenient. It's like plot armor and incredibly convenient writing over and over and over again. It's immersion breaking. It's a little bit frustrating, but the characters are pretty likable. The environment is nice. The island is nice. The change in music and the change in the soundtrack, I liked a lot of it. I liked a lot of the music. I kind of thought that the human characters, even if they weren't written great, I kind of thought that they were interesting. I never got sick of them. I got sick of certain. I got annoyed with some of the way that the dialogue was written, and the way some of it was shot with awkward cuts and stuff like that. Some of the editing bothered me and things like that. But the characters and the portrayals of the characters by the actors and their performances, I thought were good overall. I liked the performances of most of the actors. It helps that, I don't speak Japanese. So, if you were to ask me, okay, is this good Japanese voice? The performances, is this good acting? Is this good Japanese acting, or is this bad Japanese acting? I don't fucking know. I couldn't really tell you. I couldn't grade it. I mean, it seemed good enough for me with the subtitles, but at the same time, there's a big cultural difference there. There's a language barrier there, so I think it probably helps the film, honestly, because I don't really have anything negative to say about the actors or their performances. It was really good to see so many familiar faces. It was nice to see them in different roles. It was, you can hear New York behind me, right? It was interesting to hear, the different takes on the actors portraying different characters. It was interesting to see that. But as far as a monster movie, I don't think this is a great monster movie, because there's just so little monster action in it. You have a random giant condor Rodan scene. Mothra is literally taking a nap for 98% of the film and then shows up at the end to confuse everybody about whether Godzilla is good or evil. The lobster is a giant lobster, man. I mean, what can you really say about that? It's it's not scary, and it doesn't really have, with the technology that they had back in the day, it's not like you can do things to make this giant lobster look intimidating. You can't show it swimming at super speeds and creating waves that, creating tsunamis and stuff like that. They didn't have the technology for that. So, without being able to shoot beams of lightning and stuff like King Ghidorah or Godzilla's atomic breath and stuff like that, I think Ebirah is just incredibly limited as like an antagonist or as a giant like enemy like monster kaiju that is supposed to be Godzilla's foe. It's not even close. But it's like part of me is extremely sympathetic because I feel like the team that put this movie together, they were in a rough situation. This was a King Kong film being converted to Godzilla. Much lower budget. A lot of this shit was probably like changed at the last minute and rewritten and probably maybe there were reshoots, and so like I really feel for them, and I feel like they probably were just doing their best with what they had. Overall, like this movie was probably like a 5 or a 6 out of 10 for me. Like as a Godzilla film, it's probably like a 5 or a 6. I mean, as a Godzilla film, yeah, like I probably would not go higher than a 6. But I didn't hate it, I still, enjoy it. Not one that I feel like I need to watch again anytime soon, but probably one I would be willing to watch again at some point because it's got a very unique flavor. It's got a very unique tone. It's got a unique sound. It's got a unique look, presentation to it that I appreciate. So, there's definitely things I like about it, things that I don't like about it. I'm very middle ground on this one. It's not a great film. It's not a terrible film. It does manage to be fun in spite of its shortcomings. So I think that's kind of a success in and of itself. So that's my review. What's next? What is the next Godzilla film? So the next film to review is Son of Godzilla. Oh, God. Okay. All right. Yeah. 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 Fuck. All right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, as you can tell, I've seen this one. I remember Son of Godzilla from when I was a kid. That's all I'm going to say for now. So I'll see you when I make that review. Again, I'm sorry for all the yapping, and I hope you enjoyed this review of Ebirah, Horror of the Deep. I'm sorry I'm so nasally and I sound so fucked up, but I've just been so sick and I can't shake it to save my life. So anyway, take care, guys, and I'll see you for Son of Godzilla soon.